Aries Girl Podcast. Welcome to the Aries Girl Podcast. I'm your host, Aries Ramsey. All commentary provided in this video is alleged, in my opinion, and for entertainment purposes only, under the guidance of the Fair Use Act of 1976. Well, now that we have that disclaimer out of the way, let's get into the show. Hello Zodiacs. Let's talk about the third episode of Family Empire Houston. We hit a Carlos King cheating milestone for the show, and the cheater probably isn't who you think it is. So let's get into the first scene. Once again, we are back at the 2-acre property where Jermisha is meeting up with the Sheltons to discuss a development plan. In Jermisha's confessional, she states that she finally got Granny on the hook, and she now has to bring in the Sheltons, who are seasoned real estate developers, builders, and close family friends. Aisha is also an agent at the Braden Real Estate Group, and Jermisha says that it shows that mixing family with business pays off. Well, if you say so, Jermisha. Does that also include your brother-in-law, Chris? Because that doesn't seem to be working out so well at the moment. Anyway, Aunt Nikki pulls up as well to hear the development plan and asks Jermisha where everyone is. Jermisha explains that Quita is traveling, and that Nicole isn't there because she wants to determine what Granny wants to do first. I'm with Nicole on this one. It's Miss Oscarine's decision. This whole ordeal around the 2 acres seems so forced to me, but I guess it really is the major topic for the first season of the show. Anyway, we go back into Jermisha's confessional, where she explains that she wants Nicole to be a part of the development plan, but she's not going to stop her pursuit for their family's legacy just because Nicole isn't 100% on board right now. Back in scene, Jermisha explains to her aunt that they are trying to convince Granny to consider them possibly developing on the property, and she tells the Sheltons that her grandmother wants to sell the property, which is why she needs a development plan to share with her grandmother and the G1s. Kevin Shelton suggests that since the property is a straight rectangle, there should be a private road with houses on both sides with a T at the back of the property. He thinks that they can fit between 25 to 30 homes with a square footage of 1,500 to 1,800 square feet each on the site, priced from the $300,000 to $350,000 price range, and that development would cost them $7 to $10 million. Really, Mr. Shelton? That math is not mathing for me. If a home can sell for $350,000, it surely shouldn't cost the same amount to build it, because you would need to sell it at a profit. I'm thinking that the 1,500 to 1,800 square foot house might cost $200,000 to $250,000 to build, with you getting a decent profit from that amount. So for 30 houses at $250,000 each, my calculator says $7.5 million. And that's an overestimation, since not every house will be 1,800 square feet, and you might not actually build 30 homes, so I'm thinking this is going to cost $7 million tops, but I digress. We go back into Jermisha's confessional, where she admits that the estimate given to her makes her nervous because not everyone will see the vision as she does. However, she knows legacy is important to her family, but making money is important to them too. Back in scene, Kevin says that there is also room for a community park and other community features if they plan on holding on to the property long term, because you would want to make the property enjoyable for renters. Jermisha agrees and says that she's not concerned with things right now because she is more concerned with legacy. That's why she wants to do a build-to-rent project and not a build-to-sell project. Kevin summed things up perfectly by saying that if you sell a property, you make money once, and he tells Jermisha and Aunt Nikki that he is going to put something together that's tangible because Miss Oscarine is super smart, and if they give her the numbers, she'll be able to make a decision. For some reason, Jermisha felt the need to then say that her grandmother cares more about the G1s. And Aunt Nikki immediately checked her by saying it wasn't so, and says that her mother just wants to make sure that her children don't get left out. Jermisha then tells the Sheltons that her grandmother wants something to sell so that she can give it to the G1s, and Aisha asks Jermisha why they don't just let her grandmother do that. Finally, somebody said what I've been saying since the first episode. Even Aunt Nikki gave Aisha 5 on that statement. Jermisha asks how many times her grandmother has sold off land to pay bills for the G1s. Jermisha, ma'am, you are out of pocket right now. Just stop it. Aunt Nikki tells Jermisha that it isn't true, and stopped herself from telling Jermisha that what she said was below the belt. However, one thing was sold off before where Miss Oscarine financially blessed her children, and Aunt Nikki asked Jermisha if her own mother Jackie didn't share those blessings with her. Of course, Jermisha had to admit that she did get a financial blessing as well. We go into Aunt Nikki's confessional, where she says that Jermisha is out of line. She and her siblings worked for their parents their entire lives, and nothing was ever given to them. And if Jermisha wants that land, she's going to have to work hard to get it. Back in scene, Aisha asks what the next steps would be for her and her husband to move forward. She wants to know if they should put together a presentation for Granny so that she can see what things look like. Jermisha tells her that there are 3 major players that influence the way her grandmother makes decisions. That's her mom Jackie, and her aunts Charlotte and Cheryl. Nikki says that if they win them over, then it's ready to go, and Jermisha is anxious to pitch this to Granny. Aisha is also excited because they would get to be a part of the Braden legacy if things move forward. I'm still trying to figure out who is supposed to be paying for the 2-acre property to get developed. Is Jermisha wanting the entire family to pitch in or what? Make it make sense to me, please. In the second scene, we meet up with Nicole, who is just pulling up at a restaurant with her mom, Joy. They enter the restaurant, get seated, and then they place their order. Nicole tells her mom that she's glad that her daughter Layden is feeling better because she had COVID and the flu back-to-back. Miss Joy suspected that Layden had the flu, and is also glad that her granddaughter is feeling better. Nicole brings up that she and Larry have been talking about having a brother or sister for their daughter Layden because she thinks that Layden is lonely, and Nicole shares with her mom her struggles getting pregnant. She had Layden naturally, but she got pregnant naturally right before they were about to go through the in vitro process. And her mom shares that Nicole never told her that, and Nicole states that it wasn't an easy story for her to tell. She goes into confessional and says that it's an emotional roller coaster when you want to have a child so bad and you can't, so she held that in order to keep from reliving it. Back in scene, she shares with her mom that she's thinking about adopting a child, and her mom reminds her that her life is so busy and wants to know how Nicole's husband Larry feels about it. Nicole admits that Larry has those same concerns because of their schedules and busy lifestyles, but says that you prioritize what's important. Back in confessional, Nicole admits that she and Larry haven't been truly intentional about having a child because of the way they work, but as their daughter gets older, she realized that she was the only child there. She grew up with a sister, and the sibling bond is different than a bond with your cousins, and that she doesn't want her child to grow up alone. Joy asks Nicole how her conversation with Keisha went, and Nicole tells her mom that she thinks there are some things relationship-wise that can help them grow closer, and she doesn't want all of the outside noise. Back in confessional, Nicole says that since her one-on-one conversation with Lakeshia, she thinks that doors have been opened for a clearer line of communication, but it's just the beginning. In scene, her mom starts saying that even though it happened, everyone doesn't know what happened, and it started before Nicole and Keisha were born. Whatever this is, Nicole doesn't care about it, nor does she want to talk about it, so we can only speculate what Miss Joy is actually talking about, but we won't find out in this episode apparently. And yet again, it's a confessional for Nicole. She says that she doesn't think that her mom has ever felt heard, but there are some things that Nicole no longer cares to relive. Yes, she and Keisha are a few months apart and they have different moms, nor did they grow up in the same house together. But for her own peace of mind and sanity, she doesn't care to talk about those things. That ends the scene, but I'm hoping that Nicole just means that she doesn't care to talk about these things on camera, which is her absolute right to do so. However, I hope that she has spoken to or will soon speak to a therapist, because, whatever this is, doesn't need to stay buried within because it will only adversely affect her mental health. I also hope that her mom Joy speaks with someone as well. Neither one of them appears to have any type of closure. In the third scene, we head to the bungalow restaurant for the brunch with the broker event. Jermisha lets the wait staff know that they are expecting about 10 people and that she wants things kept intimate. Nicole then walks in to greet her cousin as Jermisha is going over the menu. They compliment each other's outfits, and Jermisha tells Nicole that this is her first brunch with the broker event since she had her son Jackson. From her confessional, we learn that after giving birth, postpartum took a toll on Jermisha, and this brunch is an opportunity for her to re-emerge as the madam broker that she is, and she wants her top brokers to know that she is present and that she appreciates their successes. Back in scene, we see that Aunt Nikki and Aisha Shelton have arrived at the event. Jermisha then tells Nicole about her recent meeting at the 2-acre property with Aunt Nikki, Aisha, and her husband Kevin, and how they are going to get some plans together soon. Nicole immediately wants to know if Granny is okay with that, and Jermisha states that they will find out. Nicole reminds her cousin that she knows how Granny is and that Granny has to be okay with things. Jermisha then tells Nicole that she is a step ahead because Aisha and her husband Kevin will be there with them, presenting the plan to Granny. Then, we are in Jermisha's confessional, where she claims that Nicole is Oscarine Jr. She gets that she can't do anything without Granny's blessing, but she just wishes that Nicole had her back. When we return to scene, Lakeshia and her girlfriend Caramel enter and greet everyone. Jermisha introduces them to the brokers and states that her cousin is interested in getting her feet wet with the conversation about real estate, and that Caramel is also a realtor. And, guess what? It's time for yet another confessional with Nicole. I think that her husband Larry should be concerned that someone on production has a little crush on Nicole because her confessionals are the majority of the episodes, or are all of these confessionals Nicole's doing? But anyway, Nicole states that even though Keisha isn't an agent, she made it clear that she felt left out, so they invited her because they want her to feel included. Also, Lakeshia has expressed to them that Caramel is interested in their brokerage, and as long as she doesn't do anything malicious to Lakeshia, she would be welcome there. Back in scene, Jermisha starts giving her speech to the brokers. She states that 6% of realtors are black and that their counterparts are earning 3 times more than the average African American realtor makes, and she thinks that it is because people don't understand the value that they bring to the table as real estate professionals. She tells the brokers that they are all at the top of their profession and that they have to educate and share the knowledge that they have with others that have interest in that industry. But then, Nicole gets up, walks over to Jermisha as she is giving her speech, and takes over, speaking on how she wants to elevate the Braden group through luxury, which I found pretty rude, and apparently Jermisha found it surprising by the look on her face. We are then taken to Aunt Nikki's confessional, where she says, "That's Nicole for you," and that Nicole's presence is going to always be known. She says that her nieces are smart, strong, opinionated women, and that Jermisha does deserve some limelight. But in Nicole's defense, Jermisha needs to take the limelight, and she guesses that it is every man for themselves. Nicole continues to speak on how she wants any buyer or seller to think of Braden because they are omnipresent. Jermisha takes control again by saying that they have to make sure their clients understand the value that they bring as realtors and that it isn't bragging if they are saying how they transform their client's life and build generational wealth. They need to change their messaging to that, and it starts with everyone in that room. They toast to elevating to that, and Jermisha says over and over that she's not going to start crying. In her confessional, Jermisha states that their agency is a mission from God for them to help build generational wealth for her family and for the industry. After Jermisha rejoins her family to enjoy the brunch, Aunt Nikki asks her where Chris is since Quita is still out of town, and Jermisha tells her that Chris had a prior engagement booked, and Nicole wants to know if Chris knew about the brunch, and Jermisha says that she believed that Chris had that gig planned first. Meanwhile, Chris is across town doing a photo shoot with his client Melanie. Aunt Nikki inquires about Chris's contract, and Lakeshia seems surprised that his contract is still being discussed. However, Nicole claims that they have to discuss it because, at this point, it's an urgent matter since Chris isn't doing the work that he gets paid for. Jermisha says she's tired of talking about Chris. And so am I, Jermisha, so am I. But, Nicole states that she is tired of the money for Chris's salary coming out of her account. In yet another confessional, Nicole says that the money hits the bank account every 2 weeks like clockwork, and no man, that isn't a family member, can tell her what he's not going to do and still get a paycheck. But that's the complexity of working with family. It's sacrificing to make sure that they're good. Either fire Chris so that you no longer have to pay him, or continue to pay him because he's family and stop complaining about it, because this subject is old and tiresome to only be on the 3rd episode of the season. Also, why is this conversation being had in front of Caramel and in earshot of brokers from your firm? It's giving tacky, but let's move on. Thankfully, Nicole changes the subject and tells Caramel that it is good to have her there and asks how long she's been dating her sister, to which Caramel states that she's been dating Lakeshia going on 2 years. Nicole also says that she doesn't feel like she knows Caramel, and that's a problem for her since she's dating her sister. Jermisha then says that she had once said something a little shady and tells everyone that she referred to Caramel as Lakeshia's accessory, because she compliments Lakeshia like an accessory when they are together, but they don't know anything more than that. She also thinks that it's strange that they don't know Caramel as well as they should, but she admits that she hasn't tried to get to know her. Caramel says that she comes in and tries to be respectful. Aunt Nikki claims that she always forgets that Caramel is even there because she's so quiet. As Caramel is trying to say that it is hard to have conversations, Nicole cuts her off and says that she feels as though they are a very inviting family. Aunt Nikki adds that they are intrusive, but Caramel shouldn't take it personal. And Jermisha says that they are very intrusive, not a little intrusive. Lakeshia mentions that she and Caramel have had that conversation, and she explained to Caramel that the time frame that they met her wasn't ideal because it was when her mother passed away. Nicole brings up the argument that Caramel had with Lakeshia in front of the family, and the family took offense to it. And you guessed it, back to a Nicole confessional, where she explains that when Keisha's mother had just passed, her ex-girlfriend continuously called Keisha's phone and Caramel was questioning Keisha as to why her ex was calling so much. Nicole felt as though Lakeshia wasn't able to mourn because she had to explain to Caramel why her ex was calling. Nicole felt as though it wasn't the time or place for Caramel to question Lakeshia. In scene, Nicole explains to Caramel that that was the lasting impression that she left upon the family. Jermisha was a little shocked that Nicole just put it out there like that to Caramel, but Aunt Nikki thanked Nicole for doing so. Of course, Caramel had no idea that this was how their family viewed her, so the next time she's around the Bradens, it will be interesting for her for sure. But Caramel hints that there was a lot going on at that time between her and Lakeshia agrees. In Lakeshia's confessional, she wonders what all the family has been talking about, and why no one expressed their feelings before now to her instead of bum-rushing her girlfriend. In that moment, it felt like an ambush to her and she was not prepared for it. Well now you know Lakeshia, so you should be able to move forward accordingly. That's it for that scene. In the fourth scene, we meet up with Chris and his adorable son Carter making themselves a spaghetti dinner while Quita is enjoying her vacation. In his confessional, Chris says that he is on full-time dad duty while his wife is enjoying herself in Mexico. Back in scene, he has Carter video call Quita and she asked him how his day was in school. Of course, Carter told her that it was fine. Chris then gets in on the call. She then asks Chris if they are managing okay, and he tells her that they are. Back in confessional, he says that he enjoys his bonding time with his son because his dad was incarcerated while he was growing up, so it taught him that he would be there for his kid. However, he says that Carter is a mama's boy and he prays that it changes one day. And that Carter may need Chris for something, but Chris was also a mama's boy, so he can't be upset with his son too much. Quita tells her husband that she had a long day and that they went to a tequila dispensary. Oh boy, I can only imagine how little tequila she needed versus how much she had. Nonetheless, she is having a blast in Mexico. Chris mentions that he still hasn't gotten his contract and Quita tells him that they will talk about it when she gets back home, but Chris states that he's not going back unless they get things situated with a contract. Now, Quita attempts to get clarity by saying to him that that doesn't mean that he's quitting, that just means that he's not coming back to the office, right? In her confessional, Quita worries that Chris will do things to jeopardize his income because he acts off of his emotions and sometimes wants to quit. In Chris's confessional, he says that his wife is a warrior. They could have $1 million in the bank, and she's still going to worry. Quita continues to tell him to be smart about his moves if he decides to leave Braden. Back in her confessional, she says, Chris needs to understand that we just can't quit jobs because you're upset. In his confessional, Chris says, why be somewhere that you aren't wanted or needed? She says they have real bills that need to be paid and she needs him to work. In scene, Chris says that he's focusing on what he needs to do, with or without Braden, because Nicole and Jermisha are so busy. Is it me, or is Chris seeming less motivated to work with each episode? Regardless, that's the end of the scene. In the next scene, we're at home with Jermisha and her beautiful family and get a better glimpse into her home life of having 3 children with the youngest being only a year old. She's busy working at nighttime in bed trying to finish up some payouts on her laptop, while also watching over her adorable young son Jackson. Her husband Justin enters the room and is fake surprised that they aren't asleep yet. Why would they be asleep with cameras rolling in the house? But oh well. Jermisha asks Justin if he's ready for his show, and he says that he will be, because he is going to rehearse in a little bit. Due to all of his yawning, I think it is safe to say that Justin is pretty tired in this moment. In Jermisha's confessional, she states how her husband Justin is one of the busiest men that she knows because he has a 9-to-5 career, his role as a realtor, as well as his role as a musician. At the same time, she's the licensed broker at their firm that manages the operations. Plus, she's trying to spearhead the deal on the 2-acre property with the family, all while raising 3 kids. They are stretched thin. She also states that sometimes sacrifices have to be made early on. Although she might not look 40 plus, she is, and she doesn't want to be working so hard in her 60s and 70s. She wants to have retirement money and be able to travel. Justin goes upstairs to rehearse, and Jermisha prepares to put their son to sleep, and that's the scene. On the outside looking in, it probably wouldn't hurt if they hired some help, but it seems as though Jermisha and Justin are used to putting in the work to keep everything running smoothly. In the 6th scene, we meet back up with Lakeshia and Caramel, preparing to do a little house hunting, in a neighborhood where Keisha has family close by. Also, Caramel states that the house is in the same school district for the kids. In Lakeshia's confessional, she states that she and Caramel want to blend their families and they want to move as soon as possible because their lease is about to be up, and it helps that her girlfriend is a real estate agent. They take a tour of the beautiful 5-bedroom, 4.5 bath, over 4,100 square foot home that is listed at $400,000. After the tour of the home, they go to the backyard to talk things over. Keisha loves the house and the pool, but she knows that it is going to be costly. She wants them to build the equity with the first property that they purchase together. Caramel admits that purchasing a property together before they are married scares her, and she asks Lakeshia what she thinks her family will say about them getting a house first, and Lakeshia remarks that she's grown and that her family knows that she's outside the box anyway. Back in confessional, she says that she had her son when she was 18, and she figured out that she liked guys and girls at a young age. However, her family never questioned her about her sexuality. In scene, Lakeshia asked Caramel how she felt about the brunch, and Caramel stated that she was caught off guard to discuss a personal matter at a business brunch. Also, Caramel stated that she was never asked a question about what happened the night that she was asking Lakeshia why her ex-girlfriend was continuously calling her, and she wonders if the Braden family is going to just stick to their assumptions. Caramel asked Lakeshia if her family knew the full story, and she said that they don't. Then, Caramel asked Lakeshia if she told her family what she did. If you have an inkling that what Lakeshia did involved cheating, you deserve a cookie, because you figured out the Carlos King cheating milestone. Now, Caramel fully understands why the Bradens haven't tried to get to know her and why they view her as the bad guy. Lakeshia admits in her confessional that she was still friends with her ex-girlfriend when she began her relationship with Caramel. Apparently, Lakeshia didn't respect Caramel's boundaries that she set. Lakeshia apologizes to Caramel for not handling things differently, and promises to talk to her family at Justin's upcoming show, and Caramel wants the family to get to know her outside of real estate and being Lakeshia's girlfriend. Back in her confessional, Lakeshia states that she's going to send her family a text letting them know that it wasn't cool of them to ambush her at the brunch. All that I can say is good luck with that, Lakeshia. In the 7th scene, we are at Nicole's house where she is telling her daughter Layden that Granny Oscarine is on her way over to show them how to make cabbage. In her confessional, Nicole brags on how well Granny can cook and that they never really cooked with her growing up, but they always enjoyed her food. Those are moments that she will never forget, and she wishes the same for her daughter Layton. Back in scene, Aunt Nikki drops off Miss Oscarine at Nicole's house and decides to go shopping while they cook. Not only did Granny show up with the cabbage that they were going to cook, Miss Oscarine also brought sangria. Miss Oscarine is my type of grandmother. Cheers to you, Granny, and I don't even like cabbage unless it's raw in coleslaw or salads. Granny asks Nicole if she'd ever cooked cabbage before, and she stated that she hadn't. So Granny started chopping up onions, and showed Nicole and Layden how she adds the green leaves first in her pot. Back in one of her many confessionals, Nicole says that cooking with her granny is a sentimental moment for her because her grandmother is not the most vocal person when it comes to saying, "I love you," but she shows her love in other ways, like by cooking for others and by passing down recipes. Also, Nicole wants her daughter to witness this as well between her mom and grandmom. Layden goes upstairs, and Miss Oscarine and Nicole toast to her first time making cabbage. They discuss Nicole's desire to adopt a child, and Miss Oscarine tells of how she was adopted at 5 months old because her birth mother didn't want to have a connection with her. Also, Miss Oscarine mentions that her adoptive parents gave her a beautiful life and she wishes that she could have adopted a child as well, but she did have 5 kids of her own. This entire conversation makes Nicole emotional, and she shares with Granny that she and Larry want to give a child a beautiful life as well through adoption. Back in yet another confessional, an emotional Nicole says that her grandmother understands more than anyone when she says that she wants to adopt a child, more so than any of her family members. Nicole is just reminded that her grandmother had a beautiful life because of adoption. After they enter the dining room, Nicole brings up the 2-acre property and tells her grandmother that she just wants to make sure that no one is overstepping their boundaries. And Miss Oscarine tells Nicole that she doesn't mind listening to what everyone has to say. Nicole tells her grandmother that she knows how adamant she is about making sure that things are left to her children, and what they decide to do with it in terms of the grandchildren is their business. Also, Nicole adds that she wants to make her grandmother happy and that she doesn't want her to feel pressured by anyone to do anything that she doesn't want to do. Well, Miss Oscarine isn't going to let anyone pressure her, and once again, they raise their glasses and cheers to end the scene. So, I'm with Nicole on this subject. I'm in agreement that everyone needs to respect Miss Oscarine's wishes regarding this 2-acre property and every other property that she owns, point blank, period. In the final scene of the episode, Jermisha and Justin arrive at his performance event location. After Jermisha asks Justin if he's ready, she asks if she can get on the mic, and he immediately says no, that's a negative, and she jokingly tells him to stop being a hater. In her confessional, Jermisha states that she loves to see her husband perform. It's exciting because when she met Justin, he was actually performing, so to see him in his element is sexy to her. Back in scene, Quita and Chris arrive, and the sisters compliment each other's outfits. Jermisha tells her sister that she asked Justin if she could get on the mic and was denied. Then, Quita mentions that she doesn't know why he just won't let the Montgomery sisters sing. And we are taken into a joint confessional, with Jermisha and Quita harmonizing. Okay, Montgomery sisters. Jermisha asked how Quita's trip was, and she said that it was good, but she was hoping to get to relax a little more on the trip, and now, she needs to catch up on sleep. Then, Jermisha noted that sometimes you need a vacation from the vacation. Let me be the first to say that truer words have never been spoken. Nicole walks in, and Quita mentions all of the closings on properties that Nicole had while she was on vacation. Then, Quita asked about the group text that she received from Lakeshia while she was in Mexico, and Jermisha wants Nicole to fill Quita in on what happened. So, of course, we go into yet another Nicole-centric confessional, where she starts to explain what happened regarding Keisha's long text. We hop to Jermisha's confessional, where she is scrolling on her cell to apparently get to the top of the message so that she can read it. And then to Quita's confessional to finish reading the text, and she wonders what the hell is going on, because it sounds like she missed out on something juicy that happened. Back in scene, Nicole explains everything that transpired at the brunch with the broker event and how they felt about Caramel when they first met her, and that they all thought that Caramel received what was said well. But then, they got Keisha's text. Quita speculates that Caramel chewed Lakeshia out after the brunch with the broker event. Aunt Nikki walks in and greets everyone hello and asks Justin if he is nervous about his performance, and he admits to be a little nervous. Nicole tells Aunt Nikki that they were catching Quita up on the text message and what happened at the brunch with the broker event. Jermisha jokes that Nicole started everything. Monet then shows up and gets in on the conversation. However, Nicole states that Caramel has asked if the family has had a problem with her in the past, specifically towards Aunt Nikki, because she thought Aunt Nikki's energy was bad. Wait, what? Not Aunt Nikki. And Aunt Nikki tells the group that Caramel's energy was bad. Jermisha asked if Caramel is coming tonight, and it is confirmed that she's coming. Quita and Aunt Nikki both say that they need a drink. And Chris suggests that they don't drink until after they talk to Lakeshia and Caramel. Good call, Chris. Good call. And here comes Lakeshia and Caramel in the parking lot, while Jermisha is saying that at the end of the day, they want the end result of the conversation to not alienate Lakeshia. In her confessional, Jermisha admits that the Braden women are very dramatic, and she's hoping they can keep their composure until they get through Justin's show because she definitely knows where this is going. And we are met with a cliffhanger as Caramel and Lakeshia approach the group. Well, Zodiacs, you've got to love a cliffhanger. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't see this conversation ending well, nor do I think that the conversation should take place at Justin's event. It's the wrong time and place, in my opinion. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, as this concludes my recap and review of the episode. Please hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, and why not go ahead and support the channel by subscribing so that you never miss an episode of the Aries Girl podcast. And I will see you on the next video. Until then, take care.